Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, on a mission to create remodeling experiences worthy of 5-star online reviews. See the difference at callmosby.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. In late February, we took up the subject of Parkinson's disease from a few different angles. The one that concluded that episode focused on federal lawsuits filed in East St. Louis against the global agriculture tech company Syngenta. And one of our guests then was freelance journalist Mike Fitzgerald. He's covered Parkinson's disease in a reporting series commissioned by the River City Journalism Fund. His latest piece, published just this morning, covers Syngenta's announcement that it will stop making paraquat, an herbicide that's been linked to Parkinson's disease. That piece is on our STLPR website, and Mike joins us now to talk about it, as well as other aspects of paraquat-related news. Mike, welcome back to the program.
Oh, it's great to be back.
So first of all, what was your reaction to this announcement by Syngenta?
To put it mildly, I was very surprised. Syngenta, for years and years, has dug its heels in and made it very clear they're going to stay in the U.S. market. For them to suddenly announce that they're going to quit making paraquat was just very surprising.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we talk about the announcement itself a little more, it'd help, I think, to get a primer on what paraquat is, especially for those who may not have heard our late February conversation about the links between paraquat, and Parkinson's. So remind us briefly, Mike, what is paraquat or gramoxone?
It's a very powerful weed killer that's used in the agricultural industry. It's very powerful but very toxic. Mm-hmm. It's very popular in the United States because of the fact that it's so effective at killing annual grasses and weeds, especially weeds that are resistant to other types of weed killer like Roundup. Mm-hmm. A big problem for a lot of farmers is so-called superweeds that evolve resistance to traditional weed killers. So that's why it's so popular. But because of its toxicity, it's been banned in 70 countries around the world, including all the nations in the European Union and in China, which is where the headquarters of the company Syngenta Holdings, which owns Syngenta, they banned it even because of its toxicity.
And it's been used also not in agricultural areas, but around golf courses, right?
Up until 2021, it was permitted to be used there, but the EPA ruled that it posed a danger to golfers.
Mm-hmm. So it was because it was hurting golfers that...
Well, potentially, yeah. Mm-hmm. But apparently the EPA thinks it's okay for agricultural workers to be exposed to it.
Right. And did people also use their product in their own yards?
No.
Okay.
To use paraquat, you have to get a special operator's license. You have to take special training courses. You have to wear special equipment, protective equipment, which is fine, which is good. Mm-hmm. But the problem with paraquat is once it's sprayed, and it can be sprayed in the same farm field for decades, it works its way into wells, well water, aquifers. It could turn into a dust that lands in people's yards, and they have no idea that this is happening.
Mm-hmm. And you talked with people in your reporting with those experiences, right? Deborah in Quincy.
Yeah, Deborah Gorman. Mm-hmm. Her parents, Tom and Nancy Grancolis of Freeburg, Illinois, they lived in a subdivision that abutted a farm field that they believed was sprayed with paraquat for more than 20 years. This family, the Grancolis family, lived a very, very healthy lifestyle. They were very physically active. Nancy taught tennis. They ate only organic, and yet at the same time they developed Parkinson's almost simultaneously, which is a real tip-off that this was a result of an environmental exposure.
Mm-hmm, not genetic.
Right.
Mike, at what point did alarm bells start getting rung about paraquat's impact in the United States, and in particular in the Midwest?
Well, for one thing, there's been a lot of research on paraquat going back more than 50 years. It's always been recognized as very toxic, and that's there's a lot of groundbreaking research in Europe that showed how dangerous paraquat is, and that research was shared with scientists in the United States. In the last 3 or 4 years, there's been research that has really, just tipped the balance, let's say. During a span of time, the role paraquat plays in Parkinson's has gone from maybe to probably to slam dunk conclusive. Slam dunk. Because the evidence is now that overwhelming and impossible to ignore.
How does the U.S.'s use of paraquat compare to other countries? So you mentioned that there are many countries where it has been banned, but compared to other countries where it has not been, do we see a much higher incidence of Parkinson's?
Well, it's really hard to parse that out because it takes so long for someone who develops the symptoms of Parkinson's to exhibit, this illness. But the United States, of all the countries that still use paraquat, we are the ones that use it the most, and the appetite for it is growing. Between 2012 and 2018, the amount of paraquat we spray on our farm fields more than doubled to 18 million pounds, and it could be even more than that. So we do use it because it is so effective. It's used to not only kill weeds, but also dry out a lot of different crops. But at the same time, it's basically closed off looking at alternatives that other countries are using now that are much, much safer and better for, number one, the planet, better for the consumers.
Speaking of consumers, there's a lot of money that has been made with this herbicide, right?
It's very profitable, yes.
How much are we talking?
It's hard to say. I mean, Syngenta's through its own company documents, made it clear that it sells about $1 billion worth of paraquat a year in the United States. We don't know what the total value of the whole paraquat market in this country because there's other makers, but Syngenta by far is the largest maker, and its branded product, gramoxone, is the most popular.
When you were on our show last time, Mike, you had shared with our producer that what's happening now with paraquat and Syngenta actually parallels the earlier days of the opioid epidemic. How is that so?
Yeah, well, we see some very interesting parallels. With the opioid crisis, there was a tremendous amount of fanfare over this miracle drug. And I'm talking OxyContin, because it was developed at the same time that the medical community was saying, hey, pain is a major indicator of illness. We have to treat pain. And makers of OxyContin, a company called Purdue Pharma, said, well, this is an amazing product we developed because it's, number one, it's non-addictive. Number two, you can take it and it's long-lasting. It'll break down very slowly in the body, and you'll have 24-hour pain medication. It took a long time, as well as a lot of lawsuits, to dig into that and realize that Purdue Pharma was lying. Court records show they were lying. The enormous settlements they made proved they were lying. And so there was a lot of dishonesty. But it took a long time for regulators and journalists and the public to catch up with that. And so now we have a lot more controls, much more rigorous. And we're seeing the same kind of parallel story with the paraquat. The makers of paraquat have said for a long, long time that this stuff's safe if you use it appropriately. It's great for the environment. It's great for American agriculture. And it has no causal link to Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, just like with the makers of opioids, there's a hidden story. And with paraquat, it was the paraquat papers, a trove of documents obtained under legal discovery that showed that the makers of paraquat's own scientists knew decades ago about the very close link between Parkinson's disease and paraquat, their own product, but they kept that hidden. And so we're seeing the same pattern over and over. Same thing with the cigarette industry. Makers of cigarettes knew that their product was dangerous and addictive, but they hid that. They lied about it. There's no way to sugarcoat that. They lied about it. It took a long time for the public and regulators and lawmakers to catch up with that.
And the law and lawsuits are also very much part of this story. The regional note here, to return to that, there are currently nearly 6,500 lawsuits that have been filed in federal court in East St. Louis. And these lawsuits have been folded into a consolidation of similar civil cases against Syngenta, which again is a Swiss-based company. And these cases are coming from around the country, around the U.S.,
Right.
but almost all the paraquat cases are still pending. So, Mike, how does Syngenta's announcement about its halting production of paraquat by the end of June affect these cases?
Well, let's first off make no mistake. Syngenta's decision to quit making paraquat is a huge win for environmental groups and for the people who advocate for people with Parkinson's disease. This is a huge win. But we also got to see that Syngenta's decision was based purely on monetary considerations. Syngenta realizes it is holding an increasingly weak hand, and it is doing all it can to avoid any of these lawsuits going to trial and going before a jury. Because I'm not a lawyer, of course, but I got a strong feeling that juries would not be very sympathetic to Syngenta, especially if plaintiff lawyers, unveil documents from the paraquat papers that show that this company knew they were selling a dangerous product, but refused to inform the public about its dangers. So so they were playing a very weak hand of cards. The other aspect of this is the fact that state lawmakers across the country are sponsoring legislation to ban paraquat. And that's very important. 12 states are considering bans on paraquat, including Missouri, Iowa, and Utah. So this is not an issue that has anything to do with identity politics like gun or reproductive rights. This is purely about harm to consumers, especially in rural areas. But we're far from the end of this story. That's because, Syngenta leaving the market opens up the door to a lot of generic makers of paraquat. There's all those makers of paraquat are based either in China or India. They're still free to bring paraquat into the country and sell it. And until these bans on paraquat are passed by lawmakers, this problem will continue.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with investigative journalist Mike Fitzgerald about his reporting on paraquat, a weed killer that has been linked to Parkinson's disease. Last week, the Swiss-based agrochemical giant Syngenta announced that it will halt global production of paraquat by the end of June. Mike, when we're talking about these cases, what is the expected timeline on when these cases are going to make their way through the courts?
No one knows at this point. Right now, these 6,500 cases, they've been folded into what's called an MDL, or multi-district litigation, that a U.S. district judge in East St. Louis is overseeing. So all the bellwether trials, which were supposed to give both sides an idea of the major arguments and how juries will receive these cases, they've all been put on hold while they try to hammer out a master settlement. Even if they do hammer out a settlement, which would probably be comparable to what's happened under the Roundup settlements, where plaintiffs get about $100,000 apiece, there's still a lot of dissatisfaction among the plaintiffs' attorneys. They don't think these are good deals. So I think even if they come up with a master settlement, there'll probably still be hundreds of lawsuits seeking to go put these cases before a jury. And like I say, I think Syngenta realizes they are playing a very weak hand, and they're doing all they can to avoid a jury seeing the evidence.
Mm-hmm. They're just cutting their losses.
They're trying to, yeah. They're exiting the market. They know there'll probably be a lot more lawsuits. They know they just have a very weak hand to play right now, and they just want to get out of this market. You got to understand, Syngenta is owned by the world's largest chemical company. Even though Syngenta is, sells a very lucrative product, it's a very, very tiny part of the overall picture for Sinochem Holdings.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what drives your reporting, the journalism you do, is about people's stories. We talked about that earlier. Have you had an opportunity to connect with people whose stories you have covered in your reporting so far? What has their reaction been to this announcement?
Well, yeah, I tried to build my story around people I can identify with, whose stories resonate with me. My story that we published a couple weeks ago about the lawsuits centered on a man named Joe Harrison, cattle rancher from northeastern Oklahoma. And, he had spent his life serving and protecting other people. He grew up in segregated Oklahoma, African-American man who withstood tremendous amounts of discrimination, and yet he still loved his country very deeply. He was tremendously proud of his military service, but he got a rotten break with his Parkinson's. It made his life just so difficult. And literally up until his dying day, according to his niece, he wanted the world to know how dangerous paraquat was. That was his mission in life, is he wanted people to know so this product could be removed. And when I told Patty Pouncil, his niece, just last week about the decision by Syngenta to remove paraquat from store shelves, or at least them quit making it, she was just so elated. She was so happy. Her uncle's dying wish had been fulfilled. And that's a great thing to hear.
Yeah. As far as a sort of a national look at things goes, researchers are sounding the alarm about the potential hazards of paraquat. Has demand for something to be done increased or decreased?
It has, yeah. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, for the first time ever, there's a concerted effort to pass laws in state legislatures across the country to ban paraquat. It's virtually unthinkable. Now, this is large part because of lobbying efforts by the Michael J. Fox Foundation and the American Parkinson's Disease Association. They've both teamed up to work on this. I think we've reached kind of an inflection point where the research is just so impossible to ignore now. We can't, it's just like with cigarettes or Oxycontin. We know how dangerous this product is. We see the results. There's no room now for argument, really. I mean, they could, Syngenta could spin it any way they want to, but the facts are the facts, right? And so what we do in our system here in America is, we work out some type of legal settlement, people get money, and we move on. But hopefully we'll change laws to get this product off of store shelves.
Mm-hmm. No, we didn't have room last time, Mike, to discuss what is happening in Missouri. Mm-hmm. And there's an upcoming Missouri Statehouse hearing about paraquat. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So on Wednesday, a bill sponsored by State Representative Sherry Gallick, Republican from Belton. Her bill will be heard by the Common Laws Committee of the Missouri House. And she's not sure where this is going. She admits there will be resistance because many of the people in the agricultural community don't like the idea of anything being banned. They figure, why take away a tool from our toolbox? We may need paraquat down the road. But at the same time, she's pretty hopeful because she thinks that people see the results of what paraquat has done to rural voters, and they want to see something, some good of it, And so she thinks there will be a lot of momentum for banning paraquat. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see. I mean, this would be the first time we've seen such an effort. But what's encouraging? I mean, we're a very polarized society, obviously, here in America right now, and a lot of issues like guns and reproductive rights are completely politicized because they've become identity issues, right? With the paraquat, that's not the case. It's not. No one wearing a MAGA hat is saying this or that about it. It's purely about the scientific evidence and about the harms being done to Missouri residents. And if you put it in those terms, then we could have a very rational discussion. Should we have paraquat available or not? Mm-hmm. And if it is truly dangerous, then let's remove it, right?
And under this bill, House Bill 2844, anyone who uses, distributes, or sells paraquat would pay a $250 fine for the first violation and a $500 fine for any subsequent violations.
Right.
Now, what is your sense of the prospects of this passing?
Very good question. I don't know. I mean, just like 2 weeks ago, I would never have thought that Syngenta would announce they were quit making paraquat. So there could be a lot of surprising things. I don't know if there will be people gravitating toward this bill. It'll be interesting to see Wednesday who shows up to testify for or against it. I have no idea. You know, I mean, this is uncharted territory.
Do you think the announcement may have some effect?
It very well may. The fact that a Republican is sponsoring it's a big deal to me because, as Sherry Gallick has explained to me, she's from the food industry, and she is someone who's very sympathetic to the needs of farmers and what they want, but also she knows that people in her community are being, affected by this chemical that lies in farm fields and can affect people for decades and decades. I have no idea. I've been following a little bit about some of the bills in other states, like in Illinois. There's a bill to ban paraquat. There's a bill in Iowa, deep red Iowa. The sponsor is a state lawmaker named Art Stade, who originally grew up in Joplin, Missouri, but lives in I believe rural outside of Des Moines. Anyway, he has Parkinson's himself, and he made it very clear that he wants to make sure that Iowans in the future don't get the same disease he has. So he's very adamant, and I just think there's a real inflection point we're at right now with this chemical. A lot of people don't even know it even exists, but here's the thing the great news, and there is good news, and we need good news. Number one, we'll probably never come up with a cure for Parkinson's because some cases are purely genetic. Like, for instance, Michael J. Fox's case of Parkinson's, that's probably genetic because his father has Parkinson's disease, and they've identified a genetic mutation. But the vast majority of new cases are because of environmental triggers. That's what the evidence is showing. And by far the largest trigger is paraquat. If we remove that from the ecosystem, I think we're going to say goodbye to a lot of new cases of Parkinson's in the decades ahead. That's a very optimistic thing to say.
Mm-hmm. There's also the reality that last month, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. surprised many within the Make America Healthy Again movement by endorsing President Trump's request to increase the production of Roundup. Pesticides and herbicides are toxic by design, engineered to kill living organisms, Kennedy wrote in a post on X. Unfortunately, our agricultural system depends heavily on these chemicals. So, Mike, what do you make of the Secretary's decision to back Trump on this against his own ideas of health and wellness?
Well, let's put it this way. I don't expect to get any Christmas cards from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm not his biggest fan. The whole MAHA movement, I also have a lot of doubts about that. Let's don't forget, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been coasting on his name for a long, long time. He's not a scientist. He's not a physician. I don't believe he has a whole lot of integrity, to be honest with you. He's just saying what he's told to say. I don't know. He angered a lot of people in the so-called MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again movement, by endorsing this plan to keep Roundup on store shelves. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in his integrity, though.
Going back to possibilities, what is positive, coming back to Missouri, more than 2 years ago, Missouri's GOP-led legislature passed a bill creating the Missouri Parkinson's Registry.
Right.
However, former Governor Mike Parson and Governor Mike Kehoe, they've defunded this registry with vetoes, citing budget constraints. So what does this mean for people living with Parkinson's, people like the two guests that we had on with us a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it's a very short-sighted decision. I mean, it would cost about $300,000 a year to maintain this registry. It would have provided a goldmine of information about, demographically who's getting Parkinson's in Missouri and where exactly and what the sources could possibly be. The governor said, well, we don't have the money to support it. And, there's also because we eliminated the capital gains tax here in Missouri and other things, we're losing about $400 million a year in revenue as well. So, but, this is one of these things that could pay for itself very easily and make a huge difference. I think they're just being very short-sighted. I think also this was an effort to mollify the agriculture industry, because if we have a registry that the University of Missouri was supposed to be overseeing, we would have a pinpoint exactly where people are living and how they're being affected. Is it because they live near a golf course, or do they live near a cotton farm, or what's going on, and we can focus on that and pass laws that would give us a much better idea of what we should do going forward.
Is there a model for that, in other states? Are there other states where such a registry has
Yeah, California has one. So does Pennsylvania. I believe Minnesota has one too. So what we really need, though, of course, is a nationwide registry. I mean, it's ridiculous. 2026, we don't have, with our, computing power, we can have a nationwide registry. Like one reason why we're making so much progress in things, on all these neurodegenerative diseases, from ALS to MS to Parkinson's, we have these huge veterans registries. U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm a participant myself since I'm a veteran, they're compiling these registries of millions and millions of veterans. And we know exactly now what are the conditions that cause something like ALS. Like, for instance, we know the highest rates of ALS are in 4 states. And those states also have the most ponds, lakes, and rivers. So now we know that ALS is connected somehow with water. And the leading suspect is blue-green algae. So we learned that only because of these registries. So they're a tremendously powerful source of knowledge.
Is there somewhere else that funding could come from?
Well, private sources. I mean, Melinda Gates, she's given away a lot of money. I mean, Michael J. Fox Foundation is doing heroic work. I mean, they're replacing a lot of the grant money that's been lost because of the Trump administration's cuts to Parkinson's research and clinical trials. Mackenzie Bezos, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife.
Yep.
She's apparently a great donor.
We got to put it all out there.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of billionaires out there. Instead of put that money into a ride into space, put that money into basic research that can save lives.
And as we close, Mike, in the people that you've spoken with, and the things that they have shared with you, some of which has not made it into the reporting that has been published, is there a moment that you shared with any of them that really underscores why there needs to be more attention to what we've talked about today?
Yeah, again, it's just everyone I've talked to in connection with this story, family members, is this belief, when their decision to file lawsuits has nothing to do with money. None of these people have any expectation they'll get money or any desire for money. They just want the public to be told about this danger. And because they don't want to see anyone else come down with Parkinson's disease if it can be avoided. It really struck me, the suffering these people went through in the last years of their life. And when they found out that paraquat could have been the factor, and that, we're one of the few countries in the industrialized world that still uses it, it shocked them. It's like, why didn't we take it out of our, do what the European Union did, or even China? Why do we still sell it? And that's what, for many of these people, it's like a moral crusade, and that resonates with me. But there's good news. We know how we can handle this now. All we need is the political will.
Mike Fitzgerald is a freelance journalist. His recent coverage of Parkinson's disease, which has been commissioned by the River City Journalism Fund, is available on our website, including his latest, published this morning. It's titled, Syngenta Says It Will Stop Making Paraquat, Weed Killer Linked to Parkinson's Disease. You can find that and Mike's coverage at our website. That's stlpr.org. Mike, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Oh, it's great being back. Thank you.
This episode was produced by Lila Halal-Bashich.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Doerr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.